Hi, I'm Simon Roberts, painting in France, and yesterday we went down to Beziers to look for potential painting venues for this year's painting holidays in France. And a picture behind you. What I'll do today is put a little tutorial together to show you how I would paint this scene. Let's see how it goes. So what we've got here is the pencil drawing. I've traced this down or worked up the drawing from the photograph and drawn this with a 2B pencil onto what looks like a 420 gram rough watercolour paper. This will give you a nice sort of texture to that big brushwork. So I then mix up a large amount of cerulean blue and a bit of cobalt blue in there as well. It's kind of winter's south of France sky, and I've just started kind of flooding that on. You'll see I'm going carefully around the buildings. I want to keep the blue colour off the building area if I can, so that keeps a kind of freshness when I come to paint that. On the left hand side you'll see that I've got quite a wave of a sort of wash of watercolour going down there. So the idea is to keep it alive, as they say, so that you're not going to get a stripy effect. I quite like that, just sort of flooding that down the page in big sort of horizontal brush strokes. As you come down, you can add some water to the mix in the palette. Try not to put it straight onto the surface of the paper itself. That will then give you a bit of a kind of fade as you come down towards the bridge. Obviously, the more you thin the paint down, the faster that fade is. As you can see, I've gone over the trees. They're going to be coming on in a heavier kind of tone on top of what will be the dried sky colour. So a bit of colour now under the arches, and then I'll put some onto the river itself. Here I've started adding a little bit of the cobalt, sorry, it was obviously the yellow ochre washes on the building areas first and across the bridge, mixed with a little bit of burnt sienna as you come down the building, just to kind of give a little texture in there as well. And once that's dried, I'm mixing up a colour which looks like it's got a Payne's grey and a little bit of burnt sienna, I think, there, just to bring in those shadow areas. I'm slowly seeing which are the darkest areas on the photograph and putting these in on the main picture, just to slowly start to build up that depth. Using quite a large brush here, probably 20 or so, SAA silver brush set. This really helps to make the sun-filled facades shine out. So we're going to put in the main sort of dark area. We'll be going back in again to make this stronger a little bit later in the picture. Building up the intensity underneath the arches. Once again, this will just give us an idea of what's happening, the main kind of dark areas. We will be going back and strengthening these up later in the picture. But as you can see, it's slowly starting to take shape. Some deep reflections in that river water now. A sort of mid-strength of colour. We're going to be putting some darker ones and obviously even a few lighter ones at the end. Keep referring back to your picture just to kind of get these shadows in the right place. As you can see, it's still quite a large brush I'm using. We can, as we kind of go through the painting, we'll be using, we'll finish off with a smaller brush just for the fine details. So a little further down the picture now, what I've done, I've given the greenery in the picture a kind of wash of a kind of weak sap green mixed with a little burnt sienna, and just sort of putting that in there behind the bridge and along the left hand side of the cathedral buildings. And then as that's dried, I've mixed in a darker tone of hooker's green, building in those shadow areas and some of those little cypress trees poking up there, which just gives the whole picture some nice scale. And now I'm just putting a little bit of burnt sienna on those rooftops. Just takes time, and slowly, carefully put this in a slightly smaller brush now, and good sort of horizontal strokes. You haven't got to be photographically representing the scene, but it just helps break up that kind of built up area coming down to the bridge. So I'm just sort of keeping an eye on the photograph and putting some panels in around the scene. Try to leave some of those light areas there too, just to give the illusion of that late morning sunshine. It's kind of the middle stage of the painting here now, so we've still got we've got a lot of the main sections drafted in, and now I'm going to put that first kind of wash of a kind of bluey Payne's grey mix onto the trunks of the trees. This is generally just strong enough weight of colour to paint over the sky. Don't worry too much about that. Might even drop a little bit of white on the trunk before the picture's finished. I'm leaving some space as well because these old plane trees have got quite a camouflage pattern on them. We'll go back later on and put a stronger shadow tone in here and there, but at this stage it's just a kind of base colour, generally sort of up from the bottom of the tree going upwards, getting some shapes in, those branches becoming lighter and finer as you go up. Looking forward to getting down here in the summer months, perhaps on one of our painting holiday weeks. It's obviously going to look much greener and lusher than it does now. I think adding the tree trunks has helped the composition. Keep them relatively monotone to take the eye back into the picture. So now once that first layer is dried a little, we can add some bolder shadows in. Try not to let it run down the paper, but it's not the end of the world if it does. See in the background there, I've got the picture up on the screen of my computer, so I can keep referring that and making sure I get a nice contrast in that shadow area now. So you're going to mix the brush strokes, comes flat, wide washes, and then what I like about these brushes, you can almost draw with them, kind of roll to a fine point, and you just, like that, just add in some detail. Still working in a predominantly Payne's grey mix, just varying strengths. Adding a little more colour to the mix, we get that extra intensity. Well, I've got this colour on my brush. I'm just going to stand back, look at the overall tone of the picture and see if I can add a little bit of darkness here and there. Seems to be about right now. What I'm going to try and do now is bring some life into the surface of the river. We've got that vertical colours, the blues and the ochres for the bridge and the arches, but just quite a thin wash of Payne's grey, drawing that in there, just touching the surface, varying brushstroke widths. It just helps to break up the reflection and gives an almost, well, ideally a kind of surface, hint of a sort of surface of the river, drifting slowly underneath that bridge. I might make this a little bit darker here and there. Eventually put a few little spots of sparkle on there. Try and keep the brush strokes in the direction that the river's flowing, just to help that illusion. Try not to kind of just strike them across the river. Kind of defeats the object. So the picture's generally taking shape nicely now, but what I felt it needed was a slightly stronger sky. Now, it's always good to get that on before you start adding the details, but this is just a little demonstration of how to intensify that sky without destroying the rest of the picture. So I've mixed up a slightly deeper blue. I think there's a little bit of phthalo blue in this mix as well now, so I'm just kind of carefully washing that in between the branches of the trees, and I won't take it down too far, and then I'm going to try and put a few sweeping high sky clouds in across on the right hand side. What's good now, rather than just like thinning the paint down, what you can do is just rinse the brush out and dab it almost clean, so it's just a little damp brush, and that just finishes off the edges down there where you don't want the strong blue to go all the way down to the treetops. That's it. Fortunately, what I've done here is I've already painted in some lovely branches, wispy, wintry branches with a rigger and some Payne's grey, and I'm going to have to paint these back in again later, because what tends to happen if you put another wash on top, everything tends to smudge, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. Next, I'm just adding this blue in behind the trees, just fading it down to the tree level, and then I'm going to go back across on the right hand side and put a few more strokes in across there. It's a bit tricky because I don't want to obviously go over the buildings, but I want to have that lovely sort of wintry high cloud feel, without going over the buildings, because that would be quite a retouching job. So yeah, I'm just going to be careful about what I paint on there. Once again, a few big strokes with some colour, and then rinse that brush out, clean it, damp brush, wipe it back in. That sometimes will give you a nice effect as well, just wiping some sort of cloud effects on. The trick is knowing where to stop, and I think I'm probably going to go too far here and have too much going back and forth, but we'll see. To see if I catch the building shadows or any of those trees, it's going to smear out across the sky, which is what you don't want. So be very careful when you paint this back in. Once this is dry, I'll be able to put the branches back in. Probably strengthen the water up and put a few little dots in here and there. There's still windows and so on and so forth, but you'll see all these in the final sequence. Okay, I've nearly got it finished, and all I'm doing to finish off properly is add a little bit of line work with a watercolour pencil, which I find a little bit more friendly to a painting rather than an actual pencil. Just a few little lines here and there should do it. So there we have it. I've added some final details in with a small brush and some Payne's grey, those arches up on the side of the cathedral buildings, the windows have gone in, hint of some trees on the right hand side down the bottom with that watercolour crayon. It really helps just to give some details on the bridge as well, on the arches. I've used a rigger to put the leaves and the tree trunks back in with some details, so yeah, it's worked out well. I hope you like it. So anyway, I hope you've liked the video, and please subscribe for more information, and don't forget to take a look at the website where there's more tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you soon.